Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs. Hello.
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 Tony Dudzik, Pick Guardian.
Jared Brandon Pickups.
Hey, it's me, Todd Novak. I don't know why we did that. We were just being silly.
It's fun.
Hope you liked our silliness. We're having fun. We are happy that you are with us, listening to the smooth, sultry sounds of the guitar knobs. Yeah, baby.
Smooth.
We got some fun ahead for us. It's me, it's Jared, it's Tony. Mike is, I think Mike's on a date or something.
He's incommunicado.
He's trying really hard to get, I think he's trying to get married. I'm not sure.
Was he in Kentucky? He was in Kentucky before.
He's probably going to be furious when he hears that.
He's trying to get married.
Oh, well, I don't know. Anyhow, let's get on with the show. We don't have a whole lot up front, but we got this.
I would like to talk to each and every one of our listeners
You
and
are.
subscribers and my fellow guitar knobs. 20 years ago, the Guitar Knobs was established to help bring enlightenment out of the dark ages of guitars.
You sound like an old mobster trying to wax philosophical at a
That
dinner or
likes
something.
Abraham Lincoln?
Yeah,
Wax poetically.
yeah.
Well, anyhow, listen. If everybody out there really likes what we're doing, we certainly like it. I know Jared does. I know Todd does.
Love it.
Occasionally Mike does, but he's not here.
Right.
We could use some help. We could use your support. We would like you to become a patron on patreon.com.
Yeah.
I'm told it's very easy to do. Simple couple of clicks and you're in, and you sponsor, and you can go anywhere from the cost of a guitar pick all the way up to kind of the sky's the limit.
Cost of a couple guitar picks.
A couple of guitar picks. I mean, it's not like we're
Forego your Starbucks and you're helping us out greatly.
A dozen donuts.
ooh,
Yeah,
a dozen donuts. That sounds
As I said in a different episode.
yeah.
so. In higher levels, I understand also come with special gifts,
Yeah, we've
including
got great
things
gifts.
like a beautiful Halloween inspired.
It's not Halloween. It's just those are our
It's
colors.
black and orange.
He finally said it. It's a great color, man. It's a great shirt.
It looks great. I've got mine
Good
on.
shirt.
It looks
It's comfortable.
Yeah.
You can also get a Brandon Wild shirt, too. And Todd actually helped me design that. It's a great looking shirt.
That's a good looking shirt.
Yeah.
So I guess what you need to do, go to patreon.com/the Guitar Knobs and check it out. Support whatever way you can. We'd appreciate it. And we look forward to continuing this beautiful service that we're doing just for you.
We really like doing it on our,
And we
on
do
our own
too.
time.
Yes.
All
good
rise. Okay. Thank you, Tony. All right, what's going on in the guitar world this week, everybody? Jared, go.
Okay, so I loaned Todd my Red House pedal. I forgot what it's called already. What is it called?
The what?
My pedal that I loaned you.
I call it the Sahara or the Sonora, but
That's what it is.
he's gonna really kill me. No, it's the Heat Wave.
That's right. It
The
is
Heat Wave
Heat
tremolo.
Yeah. The Red House that I bought from our boy Mike that's not here. I love that trem pedal. And I loaned it to Todd because he had some things that he wanted to try out or whatever. So I had an empty space in my pedal setup, and right next to that was my tube screamer pedal made by Maxon. And it's just a regular everyday tube screamer. Green tube screamer was the 908 or the 808 or whatever it is.
TS-808.
TS-808. That's what it is. So I got my Ibanez TS-808 and I put it right next to it, but I turned the settings way low. So instead of having one tube screamer, I have two. But the two are set up totally different as far as levels and saturation or whatever the things are called. But that's what I did, and I really like that. I like that a lot because you can go from kind of fuzzy, just a little tiny hair on it, to just full bore. So,
And how about when you put them both on at the same time?
and then you just got to hold on for dear life, right? But I'm just having fun with my current pedal setup right now.
Nice.
But it's a good time. That's pretty much what I did guitar wise. You don't want to hear about the other boring stuff.
Tony,
All right, this is installment 3 of the Bacon Belmont saga. So in
you're
addition
pulling
to...
a Jared.
Right.
Just wait till the
Did
pickups come in.
did you take it to K to get it painted?
I don't even remember.
To Akron.
Don't make fun of that guy, man.
There's a luthier up in Akron.
Okay.
We're just kidding. Yeah.
He's plugged in, man.
Yeah.
He's plugged in. He's a good guy.
We're just giving Jared the business.
So anyhow, I think last week we talked about the Bacon Belmont.
Is it sparkled?
It has not sparkled.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Because Lay's Guitar Shop can sparkle for you.
Yeah.
Nice. He has a sparkle gun.
Yeah.
So anyhow, parts are coming in. I'm still waiting on pickups and a couple of other things. But
This is in our presence, and it is pretty rad. I will attest to that.
So to review, it's like I'm placing it around 1954 based on the catalog reprint from Montgomery Ward's that I was able to find. But it is a Gretsch-made catalog guitar instrument called a Bacon Belmont. And it's a spruce top, arch top, maple back.
So think iconic model, think...
Well, it would have been Gretsch had a model similar to it, like a hollow body Corvette. I think the actual equivalent model was a 6188.
I mean, there's an Epiphone that looks almost identical to that.
So it's a non-cutaway,
full hollow body
arch top.
Think Chet Atkins and your money.
It's a jazz guitar, right?
I mean, yeah, I guess you could say.
Yeah, jazzy country.
Kind of a jazzy
I can't
box.
believe that guitar was a catalog guitar.
Yeah.
I mean, that is
A lot of guitars were catalog
beautiful
guitars back then,
guitar.
though.
Well,
well made.
it looks like this one, here's the reprint. It was, in 1954, was $159.95.
That's a lot of money back then.
Which would
So
be what
that's
today?
today's dollars.
that's like $1,000.
It's like $1,400.
Yeah, that's like $1,400, like I said.
Yeah.
I could see that then, because that is a very beautiful, well-built guitar.
Yeah.
It
So
looks good.
anyhow, so I've been piecing that back together, got it strung up. I wanted to make sure that it was worthy of putting more time and money into, which I think that it is. It's going to need some fret work.
Not much. That neck's in wicked good shape.
The neck's been pretty good, but interestingly, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier, there is no truss rod in
No,
this
this is
neck.
the neck podcast. I forgot to tell everybody. No, for real, it is.
And what I did for the week is lame compared to this so far. So please
I
continue.
don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
It's all good. It's
So,
all guitar stuff.
I mean, I've had at least 2 other guitars that have not had truss rods in them for various reasons, and one of them is a replica of the Leo Fender's Snakehead, which was his first basically a Telecaster prototype.
Yeah.
His original necks did not have truss rods, nor did he ever want to put truss rods in them, till his marketing and sales department said, you have to put a truss rod in it. Everybody else has truss rods.
Right.
So I found that kind of interesting. Now, in some cases, it's limiting. In this case, you have to be careful what gauge strings you put on. Now, I would have loved to put 12 to 52s on this one, but I had to go step it back to 11 to 48s, only because the heavier the strings, the more pull is going to be on the neck. So you kind of have to counterbalance it.
Are you doing a wound B?
G.
G?
I do not have a wound G on it yet.
B too.
Well, I don't think you can have a wound B.
AKA
Sure.
wound third.
I mean, for you, Todd, I could put a wound B on it for you. But G, I mean, what Todd was talking about is heavier string sets or even acoustic guitars generally have a wound G, meaning it has wraps around it instead of a plain steel or whatever it happens to be, the material-wise. So originally, I mean, back in the 50s, 12 to 52 was kind of light gauge strings back then. And then people started going to lighter and lighter and using banjo strings and different things like that. So then companies like Ernie Ball and others started making 11 gauge, 10 gauge, 9 gauge, even 8 gauge. And I think...
I mean, what is the point, really, at that?
At that point, yeah.
Yeah, just don't play.
Yeah. just look at the guitar.
Yeah.
Use your mental powers. Yeah. So anyhow, I'm excited about it. It's a cool guitar. I love playing guitars that are older than me because that's becoming a rarity these days.
It's in really good shape. I mean, it is in stunning shape.
Yeah, you stole that thing, man. That is a great guitar.
Well, you know, as I said originally, it was mislabeled as a 1961 blah, 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 blah. And luckily, I did some research prior to bidding on it, and
I've seen that a lot recently. I've shared a few things over with you, Tony, on via Craigslist.
Yeah,
I can't get off of Craigslist. There's got to be a support group or something.
Craigslist Anonymous.
Between Craigslist and Reverb, I'm doomed.
Yeah.
And I've sent him things like, it's like 11:45 at night. And I'm like, hey, look at this one. What do you think is this mismarked? And it was off by, I think the last one was off by like 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if the marketing team had a little too much brandy when they were thinking of names, but Bacon is a fantastic name for a guitar.
I don't think it's for bacon the meat. I'm thinking it.
Yeah, that goes back. There was actually a company called Bacon and Day that Gretsch bought the company in the 1940s.
So that's probably somebody's last name.
Probably, yeah, Bacon and Day.
I'm thinking about sizzling, scrumptious bacon right now.
Yeah. Well,
do you like the thick cut with pepper?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I think about when I see that.
If it's not, then it's the 8-gauge strings. Like, what is the point?
Yes.
Okay.
So anyways, that's what I've been doing, and I promise I won't draw this one out. I
don't know. It's you kind of already.
Well, I like flogging dead horses and such.
Tony did come to me and ask me to build pickups for this thing, and I said, what was originally in this guitar is way too intricate for me. So
why?
Well, these would have been like the D'Armond Dynasonics.
Yeah, you need screws, springs, and you need little harnesses around the magnets. It's a really intricate because you turn the screw and that raises and lowers the little magnet pull pieces.
Yeah.
So
it's Ken Armstrong, right?
No.
D'Armond. No. Who makes them now?
Oh, TV Jones.
TV Jones makes them. Okay.
Yeah, Tom does a really good job on replicating those. I think he actually replicated them for Gretsch.
Right.
When they were making the Japanese model.
And I think I've worked on one of those, and they did a really good job remaking those pickups, by the way.
Yeah.
So I wanted.
And D'Armonds were originally made in
Toledo.
That's right.
And I just wanted to give him a shout out. Good job. That's why I wanted to say that. So.
Well, I'm sure he appreciates that. He's a good guy. So that was my week. How about you, Todd? What was your week like?
My guitar stuff was not related directly to a specific piece of equipment or anything, but guitars are meant for playing, and I had a particularly really, really, really awful, no good, very bad day this week. I came home, and often what I will do when I just can't figure out you have those days and you're like, you don't know what to do, you get stuck, and you just end up like wandering the house or wandering from standing place to standing place, and
you're walking around aimlessly.
Yeah. Well, whenever I kind of get those feels, I'm like, look, I'm just going to pick up a guitar and just exorcise some of the demons.
Out!
Yeah. Demons and oftentimes when I do that, something really good comes out. This particular day, something good wasn't really coming out. It was as crap as the rest of my day. But instead of putting it down, I kept playing and I kept playing. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to kind of let I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to let something happen. And something awesome happened. And it is now my band's favorite riff moving forward. So I was really, really happy. I over the moon that actually came. So out of the dust rose a phoenix of a great riff. And so my point being is that sometimes we expect too much out of ourselves when we are playing or just noodling, and we're surrounded by greatness in the guitar world, and sometimes greatness does not want to come out and play. But keep playing. If nothing else, just have a really good time while you're doing it. You'll benefit. You'll have a better, whatever you're doing previous to that will be better as a result. That's it. That's my PSA for the day. That's public service announcement, Jared.
Thank you. I need to practice too.
Todd,
Yeah.
you're good enough and you're smart enough.
I think that's
doggone
copyrighted.
it.
Don't go any further. Okay.
Yeah, he's like a legal guy now. Right?
I'm not. I've had to learn a lot doing this. I will say that. So let's see. We are going to be. We don't have a 4 on the floor this week. At some point in time, I might do a 4 on the floor, but I kind of feel like I shouldn't because I'm got to be the open one, I guess. Maybe.
Yeah.
Huh?
The unpegged
You're
down
the
one.
neutral guy.
I'm the neutral guy.
Honestly, I don't know if you actually have one because I think you like to rotate.
I do, but now I think maybe once I nail down the last couple for this new band, then I'll do it. I'll do a 4 on the floor.
See,
I'm
I
close.
Knew it.
I'm close.
I knew it.
Let's see here. We are going to be talking about necks. There's a lot to be said about necks and a lot that I don't know about necks. I know enough about necks. I think I know some stuff about necks. Necks are kind of a interesting thing. It is a thing that most people, when they're like, I'm going to build a guitar. Oh, what are you going to do with a neck? I'm going to buy one.
Right.
Necks are voodoo, and some people do them really, really well. Some people don't. Some people, it takes them forever. Some people have many, many variations. Some never stray once they figure out their secret recipe. So neck is the thing that you're probably most intimate with on the guitar, just as far as it's the thing that you have the most contact with, that you instantly, when you pick up a guitar, if you just picked up a guitar and strummed it, you didn't hold it with your right, or if you're weird, a left hand. No, I've got lots of friends who are left-handed, and you just played it. There probably isn't as much of a differentiating factor in just holding the body of the guitar and strumming it but until you put your hand on that neck, as soon as you hit the neck, you're like, nope, or yep,
Right.
or
Exactly.
Guitars are bought and sold on if you like the neck or not.
How they feel.
Yeah.
I'm sure we've all owned guitars that, we said, oh, that neck felt really good, or it plays really well.
That's
Yeah.
one of the main things that I look at on a guitar. If it's got a neck that I really, 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 really like, I'll buy the guitar.
Yeah.
I will. That will be a deciding factor.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about some of the things that make up those feels. And I'm in the presence of two guys that know a crap ton more about guitar history, model history than I do. I'm more of a current fella than these two chaps, but
He's a current fella.
I'm a current fella. But so guys, where are we starting?
Well,
Tony.
I guess why don't we start with some of the basic characteristics?
Okay.
Um,
Let's identify the anatomy.
let's identify the anatomy.
Yeah. So we got shape, scale, radius, and frets.
Yeah.
So right now we're officially talking about necks.
That's right.
Well, we're officially talking about neck shape.
That's right. The neck
I'm
shape.
just trying to give us some
neck
kind of
feel.
chapter cue.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about shape. By the way, the only thing I can see in my head is George Costanza's dad going, "You got your A, you got your B, you got your C. D's the biggest."
D is the biggest.
That's so great.
Well, there are so many variables. There are a number of different ones. One is a V shaped, which kind of feels like it's got kind of.
That's a bit of an older.
Yeah, I mean that would have been typically.
A lot of old parlor guitars have V-neck shapes, right?
And a lot of early Fenders had V and some.
I actually
softness.
like a V. I kind of like a soft V.
I'm not as comfortable with that. There's a C shaped. Which, if you think about like the letter C kind of on its back,
right? They're all letters. They're all letters.
Yeah,
they're
basically. There's a D shaped, which is basically a C, but it has a little longer. It's a little fuller neck, almost like a baseball bat.
Or think about a D,
or like a D on its back.
Yes.
And then there are some that are just variations
offset
thereof.
D.
Yeah, I mean there are some that are
which
compounds.
I believe that's what Stevie Ray Vaughan played, right? I think he played a.
It was probably a V towards the nut and worked its way up into a more of a C profile.
Like,
yeah. That's asymmetrical.
Yeah, asymmetric. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Well, offset, asymmetric. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Potato.
Potato. But so I think in the player's hand.
Well, you're mentioning compounds too. So some start out as a D,
at one
go
point,
to C. Some people start out
as a V, and
right.
And some people actually take a neck and kind of sand it down to their own.
I've done that
feel,
on a couple.
Or sometimes it's a little too thick and they want to thin it down a little bit. So to me, that's probably the biggest feel difference in a neck.
What my hands like, and what I like personally, is you gotta, now you're talking my language. I like early's. I like early, which is known as the early '60s profile that Gibson has, which is it's a wide neck, but thin. It's not. It's
not a lot of
explain.
meat on the back.
Not a lot of meat on the back at all.
Is that typically a D profile?
C, pretty much.
It's
yeah,
like
60s
Fender
C. or
Gibson.
And
back then,
C profile.
Back then they were
soft
all
C.
They were all handmade too.
Not a
pointy C.
Not a pointy C.
They were all hand sanded and
they still are.
Yeah, I mean, once you find something you really, and I like to close my eyes, feel the neck,
He's
play
doing
the
that
guitar.
right now, everybody.
I'm doing it right now because it's just the motion I go through, and I really like the guitar. That's what I personally like. You kind of got to find necks that you like. Now I have a Fender neck, and I'm not sure exact what the shape is, but there aren't very many Fender necks that I like.
You like those, like the Japanese thinner.
The Japanese necks I like a lot.
Yeah.
And even some Mexican-made Fenders have, like the Fender Deluxe that I have with the wide range pickups. That neck is just fantastic.
Okay. So if I'm sitting here driving and I'm like, look, I don't know a crap ton about necks. And you're like, well, the Japanese neck, the Mexican neck. A neck's a neck. If they're both C-shaped, let's say your Fender's a C-shaped neck, okay, but you're saying, oh yeah, but the Japanese ones, oh yeah, but what the Mexican? So like, what are we really talking about? What's the difference?
Well, I think the Japanese-made Fenders, for instance, were originally not supposed to make it back to the United States.
Okay,
they were designed for Japanese players with smaller hands.
Excuse me?
I did not know that. 30 years guitar playing, and that's the first I've ever heard of that.
You didn't know that?
And just so we're making it clear, when we're saying thin, I don't want that to get confused with narrow. That is literally the amount of meat on the back of the neck that's sitting in the palm of your hand.
Yeah,
Compared
basically
to the top.
from the top,
Right.
from the fretboard down to the bottom.
Right.
Right.
So when someone says, "Oh, it's a shredder style neck," your thumb is very, very close to the fretboard.
Right.
Yes.
If you're using a baseball bat or a boat oar neck, your thumb is pretty far away.
Yeah.
So just take your hand, make a claw shape out, and thin is close together, and boat oar is very far apart.
I am in no means a shredder guy, but I just really like the feel of those necks. That's why I bought that Les Paul Jr. that has the urinized guitars are essentially
and I
the
think,
same.
I think that is a wise way to go about buying an instrument.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, I've done it. Sometimes I buy them sight unseen, but the guitars that I really like and I want to spend money on, I always play first.
Right.
Because
it's old school.
I've had some really, really great guitars that I just ended up hating because of the shape of the neck.
I don't know that's old school. I think that's just good.
It makes a lot of
good
sense.
buying.
Yeah. I mean, you can read about it all day long, but the truth is, same manufacturer, same year, right off the line together, they can be completely different because a lot of guitars are still made by hand, factory-made instruments, and they're tweaked by hand. They're sanded, and so they can feel quite different.
That's the upside of getting a boutique guitar, which is you can have them make it however the heck you want them to, and it's not going to be as probably as much of a financial or time setback as trying to go through a custom shop of a major brand.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I was out at Fender's custom shop a year or two ago, and they actually have a room that you can go in, and they've got basically every thickness and shape and whatever neck and all the different body styles, and you can basically go through and kind of make a work order of a guitar if you wanted to order it that way. And I think a lot of smaller builders are kind of doing the same thing. They may have, this is the neck that I like to use on this guitar because it feels good. And so if there's some examples that they can play, I think a good shop like that will have some variables that you can actually put in your hand and try.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. I've had several different style necks. At any given time, I usually have enough that are coming in and out that I don't have the luxury of going like, I only play C-shaped necks. I'm not that.
Yeah.
I don't have that. But I remember I had it was a 61 reissue, the SG. It was my silver one. I think it was the 61. And when that arrived, I got it out of the box and I was like, yes, this is awesome. And I was like, what the hell? And it was a baseball bat.
Yep.
With strings on it. And I said, this sucks.
Was that Epiphone?
That was the Epiphone that I sold at that show. Which, by the way, dude, if you're listening, I earned every penny of that sale because I've never tap danced as long as I did to sell this guitar. I'm serious, man. It's like 40 minutes. I'm giving this guy the song and the dance to tell. Anyways,
that was a big neck guitar.
it was a real big neck guitar.
Yeah, that's
But-
not accurate to 61.
Well, 60. Well,
I might
it
be
could
misquoting the
carryover.
name. It might be I don't know. It was.
But if it's
something.
like a late 50s,
It was big.
Yeah, late
those
50s are big.
Gibson necks.
It was a pro. So whenever the pros came out.
Yeah.
Anyways, I digress. I do have one of the main reasons that I bought my double cutaway, my Les Paul, which I love, is because I played Jared's and I said, "Whoa, I love the neck on this."
Yeah.
And
Fantastic.
so I grabbed that. But my Telecaster, I got a Nashville Deluxe, the 60th anniversary, and I mean that neck is so great on it. I just love it. And it's weird. It's like when you pick something up and it has the right neck.
Yeah. Yeah.
The new acoustic, the Art and Lutherie that I got. Oh my gosh! If I could have that neck on every guitar, I'd be. Honestly, I'd be thrilled. I love it.
Yeah.
It makes you want to play it, and as soon as you pick something up that isn't that, or that gives you some kind of like, it's a little slidey. It's a little. The lacquer's kind of goofy on it, or
That's another thing too. I mean, now you can get the necks that are the satin finish.
Oh, yeah, we didn't talk
the
about
lacquer
that.
finish.
Yeah.
And you could tell all that. That's a big game changer.
yeah,
Yeah, that's another feature that can really. I know a
Just
lot
the
of
finish.
people who will take a gloss finish neck, and sand it down. a little
I
bit.
did that on my Telecaster, but it's a maple neck, so it already had relatively light lacquer on it, but I also tried that.
On the
So
Gibson.
this is where Todd likes to jalopy things and doesn't always do them right. So I got the special, and the first thing I did, because I like my Fender so much, when I just kind of put the rub on it a little bit and deglossed it, I tried that, and it ended up going horribly wrong. And was just it was gouged and it was gummy, and I took it over to Chase or Chasing Vintage Guitars, and he was like, "Oh, geez, what happened?" I said, "Oh man, I don't know. Whoever did this was a dope."
Jared did it.
And he
blame it on Jared.
And he ended up repolishing the whole thing out to where it's beautiful. I mean, it's like a mirror finish, so it's great. However, if I was going to just say, "Look, I'm never going to get rid of this guitar," I don't think I will, but I would probably opt to take it down to, wood with a light finish, just a super, just a spritz of nitro on the back. But it's got poly on it, and I think that has something to do with it had gummy.
Which guitar?
This is the Les Paul special double cutaway.
That's a nitro finish.
It's not a vintage.
I know.
It's a newer guitar
Yeah.
They're still shooting nitro.
with a lot of plasticizer.
Yeah.
A lot of plasticizer.
Yeah. Anyways,
I had a 1977 Gibson Les Paul Custom, black, except for the back of the neck. It was totally wore down to the wood. And in retrospect, I loved it. Man, it was a great feeling neck. The guitar, it was heavier than boat anchor. But all the finish wore down. If you close your eyes, you could barely tell the difference between the finish and the wood because it's been played so many times that it was just wore down to a certain point. And it's in my opinion, it's not easy to replicate that. No sandpaper or
no. It takes actual wear. Yeah. I mean, I've had instruments, and some of my favorite ones are ones that people have just played the hell out of.
Right.
And you can tell the frets are gone.
Natural wear down.
Yeah.
Man.
And somebody loved that guitar enough to play it like mad.
Right.
Loved it up.
Yeah. And those are still very cool guitars. They sometimes take a lot of maintenance.
Sure.
But
Willie Nelson's trigger.
I'm just really surprised though. So you're talking about the sort of a naked neck, and like I was mentioning, the Art Lutherie that I got has got no finish on it. Now, obviously, it must have some light kind of finish on it, but for all intent and purpose, it is a naked neck, and zero wear. But when I picked up and played it, it was just like silk. It was so playable, and it just made me instantly want to keep playing it.
Yeah.
By contrast, like your beautiful guitar that you have there is like heavily lacquered, and that's something to me that I don't dig a whole lot, right? I'm surprised that more guitar builders don't do, I guess, quote unquote, naked necks right out of the gate. The Godin that I had before, which is the hollow body, it had a naked neck on it, and again, that was another one that I loved. With so many people trying to do that, and knowing that such a desirable state of a neck is to have something like the finish worn off, I'm just surprised that there aren't more brands that are going for an unfinished neck altogether.
It would save them a little bit of finishing too, right?
Yeah.
A little bit of material.
Well,
I don't know, what
when
is
you
the
look
point
back,
of putting the finish on there?
well, I mean, if you go back to the crazy '80s with a lot of the Charvels and Kramers, and
they
things,
were all naked.
They were naked necks. I mean, unfinished, because a lot of players at the time wanted that feel. I think the kind of middle of the road that most manufacturers have come up with is the satin finish.
Yeah.
So they use a thin finish.
A lot of Fenders do that now.
Yeah. I mean,
Deans do that too.
I still prefer, I don't know what it is. There's something about a gloss finish to me that feels right.
Yeah.
But that's all I've ever really played.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, because you're
I might have to figure out
40 years of
something
playing, right?
something to do with that
Almost,
special.
Actually, more than. Oof.
Never mind.
Never mind.
I need a professional satinizer.
Well, I think,
there you go.
I think again, this goes back to if you are looking for something very specific, most boutique builders will be able to accommodate that.
Yeah, or a really good
or somebody
guy.
Yeah, I mean, and it's really not that difficult. You come over to the shop sometime. We'll try.
Well, I
with
did
some
that.
micro mesh.
I did that with my Fender, but like I said, I did the exact same thing on this one, and whoever did it really did a bad job.
Well, I will say this about newer Gibson finishes, at least that I've seen. A lot of them stay really soft for a really long time, and they get gummy. And I think part of it is the additives that they're required to put in to this nitro lacquer to make it OSHA approved and EPA approved and that sort of thing. So, the nitro finishes of today are not like nitro finishes of the 1950s.
They're probably illegal.
Yeah,
they probably would be at this point in time. So
interesting.
So yeah, but what happened with yours is not unusual, I don't think.
Yeah. So we started off with shape, and we kind of went into finish, but I have another couple questions back to shape real quick before we move on ski. Aside from just preference of someone saying, "Oh, I like the way that feels," can we attribute those shapes to any specific technique, playability?
Good question.
It feels like that there's a reason like that old swing style guitars, parlor guitars, stuff like that might have had big V-neck shapes versus, like a Dean Dime, which has got like no neck on it. It's just.
Yeah, that's a shredder neck.
Right.
With hardly any meat.
Right.
And that's so I'm getting into noodling.
Yeah.
Besides someone saying
and a satin finish,
I want it to feel like that. Let's talk about why those things are shaped, or why like somebody like Stevie might have a compound neck, or other players.
Yeah, I think I think the V-shaped neck probably stems. I mean, that's probably the oldest shape. Is probably easiest to cut with manual tools.
Well, the F-shape neck didn't really fly.
No, you kept getting caught right there on the palm of your hand. It hurts. Hurts really bad.
What?
But the V, I guess the biggest advantage to it is you can kind of plant your thumb on one side of the V, on the bass side of the V, if you're playing that way. And then that gives you kind of an anchor point to let your fingers walk around a little bit. I think the thinner necks for people who are just playing really fast runs and not really hitting the strings hard, that lends itself more to that. I think rhythm players tend to like.
So for example, if you've got a shredder neck and you're letting your guitar hang low, that is a painful way to hold your guitar, because at that point you're having to help balance the guitar with your thumb, which is now pressed firmly up against almost nothing.
Yeah.
As opposed to if you have that up high, your thumb is not necessarily having to help balance the guitar, because the rest of your body and everything is helping to compensate,
and
you can kind of let your fingers kind of do the rest.
That's actually a totally different subject, but it does come into play because I think rock and roll players love to have guitars
fling it low and let it go, baby.
That's right.
Right.
And it really is an unnatural playing position.
It's completely. But
but then you
it's
look
rad.
at one of my favorite pictures is an old pictures of the Kinks, and Dave Davis is playing a flying V, and he's got his hand between the two, the part of the V. So he's got it strapped up on his chest, and he's playing
That's where
it
they
way.
played it.
There's
the guitars were up where their chests were.
But
they had to peek over their guitar.
Yeah, but truth be told, that is probably a more natural playing position.
Yeah. But I think they were also taking it to stylistic extremes. If you look at the early Stones, like early Keith with his, there's, can't remember what footage it was, but he's playing I believe an Epiphone. It might have been a Gretsch. And he's playing it almost like Johnny Cash style, with his elbow straight out the back. Like the the horn of the guitar was almost under his chin. I'm like, that is
They
ridiculous.
all played him there.
I'm just saying, like, I think
Maybe the straps were shorter back then.
I feel like it was a style. I feel like that was as much of a stylistic approach as slinging it low. Like, Slash isn't going to play his guitar up high.
Right? Can you imagine Slash coming out with a Les Paul held way up here?
But at the time, that whole mod thing, that was very much into play. So there was this. I think that was a stylistic thing. To be honest.
Okay.
But if any of the if Keith wants to call it, let us know what he thinks. About
it wasn't anything to do with style.
Anyways,
I
so
digress.
we're back to let's go to
So back to the shape. Again, the V shape. I think a lot of lead players, especially more bluesy lead players, I think like that because you anchor your thumb and it gives you a little leverage for your fingers.
a little vibrato and stuff.
Yeah, and I think shredders like a very almost non-neck,
Right.
non-existent, so they can just let their fingers float over the strings.
Yeah.
I think rhythm players like C-shaped necks.
Yeah.
And also D-shaped necks. Sometimes they like a little more, ball bat-ish.
Yeah,
feel
but then
to
there's
it.
a shallow D too, which I think it's a flatter back of the neck.
Yeah.
It's shallow but flat.
Yeah, so straight off the fretboard, curve, flat bottom.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a lot of those, but I have seen a few.
What?
I have not seen a lot of those.
Where I see a lot of them.
I have not seen a lot of those, but I have.
But I have seen a few.
Mr. Contradictory.
You're our own Yogi Berra.
But I see a lot of those, this comes to mind because I've purchased and gotten rid of a number of old Guild 12 strings. Mm-hmm. They have double truss rods in them, and that was one of the reasons for the shape to accommodate the truss rod.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
Or the
that's
dual
where
truss
that
rods.
maybe came from.
Yeah.
Interesting. And then the compound is I would imagine just a personal preference.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it depends. I mean, it could be you might have a V on the first 5 frets, and then it kind of morphs its way into a little bit flatter and rounder towards the top end of the neck. And again, personal preference. Where I see most of those are on guitars that people have modified themselves.
Yeah. Interesting.
So,
All right. Okay, cool. Well, I think we can safely say that is covered.
Shape is covered.
Check. Right?
Fretboard.
Let's talk fretboards.
Okay, well, actually, we have scale next.
Scale.
Scale. In the order that we started the anatomy.
Okay.
All right, scale
We'll
it
do
back
scale.
a little bit. Do scale.
Let's do the scale. So, let's talk about scale. We talked in the intro. We talked a little bit about the most common ones that are out there, and again, a lot of this has to do with personal preference too.
Right.
And
So, okay, let me ask maybe this is the elephant in the room or the most obvious question that everybody else knows, but why? So if we think about the two big guys at the time,
Fender and
oh
Gibson.
my gosh, I've been handling this pen and there's ink all over me.
So Fender and
It's
Gibson.
not on the chair.
okay,
It's just all over me. Oh, that's stupid. Okay, yeah, so you got Fender and Gibson.
don't be blue, Todd.
Yeah, blue ink everywhere. I'm an idiot. Okay, so you got
It's a
Fender and
cherry on
Gibson,
top of the
and
cake.
one of them says, "I'm going to do it this way," and the other was like, "Pish posh, I'm doing it this way," because they're that good.
Was it kind of a sales thing? Was it kind of I don't want to be like those guys, so we better just
That's a really good question.
add
I
a
don't
little
know.
bit to the scale so we can have our own scale.
I don't know if that. I don't know what went into that.
Was it tone? I mean, wasn't Leo Fender very specific and very intricate and careful about how he built those guitars, even though he really wasn't a guitar player?
No, and it could be something as silly as that's
Why do I keep playing with this damn pen?
It's poison.
Okay,
his poison pen. I mean, it could be something as silly as those were the measurements that he had on the
Right.
scale length. I mean, at the time, most Gibsons.
but you're also talking. Okay, let's talk about maybe. I'm going to ask this question: does the bridge versus the tailstop bridge have anything to do with the scale at that point?
Yeah.
Because no,
No. I mean, the only thing I could think of...
I'm just trying to think of the back anatomy there, you know?
I got you.
I think that longer scale length guitars tend to be brighter, and Leo was all about bright.
Yeah.
From the pickups to the amps.
He did a good
everything.
job.
He wanted bright. Now, some of it can also stem from, there were a lot of lap steels and things at the time. And it may have just been, I've got this cutting template based off of this scale length that was on this lap steel that I've been making for the last 3 or 4 years. I'm just going to do it on guitars. I mean, I don't have the right answer, and I'm sure someone out there does. So if you do know the answer, post it.
We welcome your commentary
Facebook.
on Facebook groups.
Yeah.
We, disclaimer, nobody in here is a professional know-it-all. So the whole point of doing this is to learn from each other and to talk about things.
If we're wrong about something, please chirp about it on our Facebook group.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I'll have to.
I mean, there's got to be, maybe there's no reason at all. I don't know.
You can ask Google.
No, Google doesn't know anything.
But so in terms of scale length, so the shorter the scale length, the smaller the number, the easier the same set of strings will feel on. So you have to remember at the time in the 40s and 50s,
The strings were pretty thick.
strings were like 12s.
Yeah.
12 to 52 was kind of
Wound thirds.
standard, wound thirds.
Right?
And so I think one of the reasons that a lot of companies went to a slightly shorter scale length is to make the guitar play better.
Okay.
Now that has changed into lighter gauge strings feeling even slinkier on the same kind of neck.
No circle R on that.
No circle R. But then Fender, as they were developing student models, things like the Duosonics and Music Masters and Mustangs.
Student just for shorter arms.
For smaller kids.
people,
Yeah,
shorter
smaller
arms.
people.
No, I want to mention Gibson also had some shorter scale juniors.
Yes, they did. They did.
I didn't want to leave them out.
Yeah, they did. They had their student models. Right. And again, at the time, there's some really great pictures out there that I've stumbled on. But, it's like these classrooms filled with kids playing these really cool guitars.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
And, I would just, kill to have this back in the 1950s or whatever.
Yeah.
And but that was kind of guitar companies had salesmen that went around the country, or distributors that went, and they would go to schools and they say, well, we've got these amps and guitars. Your kids are going to want to play them.
That's right.
And that especially happened in when the Beatles hit America, in 1964, I think was probably the biggest sales year for guitar companies ever. And because every kid wanted to play guitar. And
They wanted to be a Beatle.
By Christmas 1964, I mean there was a guitar and an amp under every Christmas tree.
That's how my dad got going.
So a lot of companies then tailored these shorter scale lengths to that. Now, that also they made specific models, like Fender made the Jaguar that used that same 24-inch neck. What it enabled them to do was to put an extra fret at the end of the fretboard. So instead of 21 frets, Jaguars have 22. So
Hey, save that for the fret stuff.
but it's the truth. I mean, on the same length of a neck,
Sure.
they were able to add an extra fret, and that's just like saying, "Hey, I've got an extra fret."
Right.
Sales-
I got 89
sales
keys.
Yeah.
Right.
So, anyways,
Why is that funny?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Because we've been doing this too long.
I know.
So
I did have a point. I was trying to get. Oh, so what I wanted to touch on was, you've mentioned string gauge a couple times, and I think I didn't know until actually very recently, and I've been playing guitar a long time. I didn't know that there is, if you've got a, quote unquote, a Gibson scale or a Fender scale, that you might not want to be using those 10s on that, or you might not want to be using those 9s or 11s on that, right?
Right.
I just was always under the impression that, like, you play what you like to play, right? Which nobody's going to argue with that. If you just say, hey, man, play what you like to play. That's an, infallible argument. I think it's right.
Yeah. I mean, and I mean, truth be told.
But in theory, if you put 10s on a Fender and 10s on a Gibson, the 10s on a Gibson are going to be floppier.
Yes.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Okay.
But enough to notice a difference. So
but that comes into play when we're talking about action and stuff, and people are like, why do I have to raise my, stuff
or
up so high? Or
intonation,
I'm getting fret buzz,
yeah.
but I got the same strings, and I've got almost the same height as on my Fender.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and I've run into that, and that's always kind of perplexed me. And then I'm like, oh,
yeah,
yeah. What I do is I've got 20 plus guitars at home, so the last thing I want to do is compare. What I do is I take each guitar out and I figure out exactly what feels good for that one guitar. Mm-hmm. I don't compare them and all that kind of thing. And it all depends what that neck shape is. It all depends how high the frets are. And it all depends what kind of gauge strings there are. There's so many variables to go along with, the perfect setup for your interest.
In theory, though, I'm not saying that this is a right or wrong way. There are few things in the guitar world that are right or wrong. Very few.
Yeah. Right.
But if we were saying, look, scientifically, by the textbook, you have a set of 10s and a set of 11s. The set of 11s should go on
a jazz guitar.
A shorter scale length.
A shorter scaling. So you've got your Telecaster and you've got your Les Paul.
Yeah.
You got a set of 10s and you got a set of 11s.
Right.
The shorter the scale.
Yes.
The heavier the gauge string in theory.
Yeah.
To make it not floppy.
Yeah, right. I think I talked about this.
So 9s on a Les Paul is kind of like, what are you doing? Right?
Don't get me started.
Now, that is purely argument. I by no means am saying you shouldn't do that.
Some guys use 8s, man.
Some guys use 7.5s.
Are there 7.5s?
Yeah, that's stop.
That
guy from ZZ Top. What's his name?
Billy Gibbons.
Oh yeah, that's the guy.
Yeah, you know what? Angus Young plays really light strings too. He plays super light strings.
You know what's funny about Billy Gibbons? Now that you brought him up, he likes Fender guitars with that shorter Gibson scale. And he has a mutual friend of ours build them like that.
Interesting. Well, anyways.
Well, here's what I have been doing lately.
It's more of an information thing, because when you start, if you're starting to read things on the forum, on the internet forums, and people are throwing out things like, oh, you need to use this gauge for this scale length and stuff, and you scratch in your head like, wait, why?
Yeah.
That's why.
Well, so what I have been doing probably for the last couple years is I like 10s on my Fender scale length guitars. Mm-hmm. I like 11s on my Gibson scale lengths. And then if I have, I've got some Jags and other short scale, like Mustang type guitars, and I like 12s on those. So to me, what it does is if you jump from guitar to guitar to guitar, they all feel about the same, even though the strings are slightly thicker on the shorter scale lengths. And that's just something that I just kind of stumbled on years ago, I guess. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, I'd say, well, I got 10s on this, and I'd put 10s on everything. And, that, not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think if you are playing live and you switch guitars from song to song or whatever, if you want to have a consistent feel, I think stringing your guitars up like that is a good way to go.
It's interesting because I would almost say that if I am handed a guitar, so I've got a couple different guitars for for the band that I'm in, and I would want those handed to me.
Ouch.
From my not guitar tech. And by handed to me, I mean going off and saying, let me grab my other guitar really quick. Getting that, and to me, I would want the strings to feel the same, not necessarily the tension, I think. I don't know, but that's just me.
You know what? Different guitars and different feels, different gauge strength. That's never really bothered me, personally. In fact, I welcome a little change during the night, during the gig.
Oh, careful there. Oh, dear.
During the gig, during playing. I'll go from, a set of 9s on this guitar to a set of 10s on the next guitar, the next thing. Personally, it's all about your own
little
personal
guitars,
preference.
thin strings, skinny necks.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it's just so funny.
I got a couple of
It's just
50
so big.
I got some profiles. 50 profile necks that are
Do you use
pretty
really
big.
tiny hammers at home?
I do in my shop. I got a tiny hammer. I use it in my shop all day. It's got a tiny handle.
Anyways, okay.
Is that what the kids are calling
I'm not
it
going to
these
pick
days?
up this pen that's exploded all over me. All right, so that's scale. Check.
Scale. Let's check. What's next?
Radius.
Radius. Okay. We touched a little bit on it, but
We're talking about fretboard radius.
fretboard radius. So the top where the frets lie.
Fretboard or fingerboard?
You can call it either.
I'm just asking.
A lot of what I would call standards, things like that Gibson has used over the years, they've been pretty consistent, and they stay pretty flat. It's about a 12-inch radius. So if you think about it, if you had a 12-inch circle and you lobbed off
A fraction of that.
a fraction of it, say 2.5, 3 inches,
Yeah.
that's the radius of the fretboard. A lot of players like a flatter board. A lot of lead players, I should say, like a flatter board because you can bend strings better or whatever. A lot of rhythm players like a rounder board. So a lot of the vintage Fender guitars had a 7.25 radius. Most modern Fenders have a 9.5, so it's kind of midway between the vintage style and something as flat as a Gibson.
So let's talk about that really quick. I do not play leads.
Okay.
I play rhythms. I like a little bit more radius because
Your
my
fingers.
hand naturally curves. So I don't get fret buzz if I'm doing like a bar chord, which I bar chord myself to death. And if it's too flat, then it's just like you're going to get gaps and you're going to get buzz.
Yeah.
Theoretically. Yeah. I do. 'Cause I don't have flat double jointed hands.
Dude, don't get ink in your eye.
Oh, I know. Oh, damn it. Just don't make me touch the top of my lip. Okay. So, and then if you've got a flatter board, which is better for, running all the crazy arpeggios and business like that.
Yeah, I think that's really what it boils down to. I mean, as we said earlier, a lot of classical instruments have a perfectly flat fretboard.
Right.
And because that style of playing involves more fingering as opposed to bar chording or whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
So
Because he said fingering?
No, because you go, oh, yeah. Oh,
He said fingering.
he's my friend from Minnesota.
I know.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's true, man. Those guys are just going a million miles per hour on those flamenco guitars, or whatever they are.
We were talking about radius.
We were talking about radius. I think, and again, that can be something that's a very, one, the style of music that you're playing, and two, how it actually feels in your hand.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, if we're talking about the big two, radiuses for Fender versus Gibson.
Fenders tend to be rounder. So
a little rounder.
A vintage style is 7.25. A modern style is 9.5. And most Gibson fretboards are 12-inch radius, which is flatter.
So
I'll take
radius is a smaller conversation there. It's just identifying what it is.
Yeah, and I think again, it's personal preference,
Right.
And how
but
it feels
most
in your
importantly,
hand. Yes.
radius matters when you are at home setting up your guitar and you are trying to get your action right.
Yes.
and you have a 2-pneumatic bridge
Yes.
or whatever kind of bridge saddles you have, radius is important because if you don't adjust those correctly to the radius, you can get yourself into a little bit of trouble.
I think what Todd is trying to say is the radius at the bridge should match the radius of the neck. Fingerboard.
Oh, of course it should.
Or actually.
Well, it's not. I know you're saying, of course it should. You know a lot of you know a lot about guitars, and I'm like, that's not something that everybody knows.
I don't know everything about them.
No,
I mean, in theory, it actually should flatten out a little bit as you get to the bridge.
Yeah.
Because that's what a neck does. I mean, you can measure all the way up and down the neck, and it's going to average.
Yeah.
Well, you're 9.5 or 12 or whatever.
But if you've got a highly radius neck and you go completely flat in the back,
yeah,
that's going to be weird.
And that's why Fender had the vintage stagger on their single coil pickups in the very beginning, because they would help out the radius deal there.
Well, they had that, and then also the G string is louder.
It was the D, I believe.
I forget which one. One of the strings ended up being louder, so they would always sync. Oh, okay.
It was the B. It was
so
down,
they would sync
down low,
that magnet lower to kind of balance out the.
Because that's just a natural loud string.
If you're looking at your pickups and your poles some are high, some are low, just leave them.
Yeah,
don't try to fix them unless you have the screws. Which I have adjusted the screws on mine before. That's a whole other pickup
What some
thing.
people do is they plug their guitar in one of those sound wave things, and you can actually see how much louder one string is than the next, and you can adjust your pickup pull height if it's adjustable.
I would change that too. What few people do is plug their guitar into an oscillator.
You're right. Few people do that. I had a customer do that.
Get my oscilloscope out, and we'll take a look at this.
I had a customer do that and give me the heights of where he wanted.
Wow,
his jazz bass.
That's impressive.
That's anal retentive.
And I did it. I nailed it perfect. The guy was like, "I can't believe you did this. This is cool."
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
nice plug.
That was
frets.
Brandon Wow.
Again, another personal preference. I mean, in general, I think some people really, really, really like vintage Fender, very thin, fairly medium height.
And when we're saying very thin,
from
skinny.
Skinny's
also notice thin, but they're called thin or thick. I get it.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to give everybody a.
So the actual width. Not from E to E, but
not length.
From nut to bridge.
Right.
is actually very narrow.
Yeah.
Gibsons traditionally have a wider or fatter fret and much lower.
Right.
The so-called
often flat on top.
Yeah, the so-called fretless wonders of the 1950s and 60s. Those, Gibsons were
I don't know
known.
if they started out flat, but most of the ones that I've seen are kind of flattish.
They actually did start out. I mean, that was a big selling point for Gibson, I think, is because, I mean, they also wore out faster, but while the frets were still good, they played really fast.
Yeah.
I mean, they were much easier to play than, say, a comparable Fender guitar.
Mm-hmm.
But then, as the ruts start wearing into frets and things like that, they're a little more difficult to refret.
So let's talk about ruts. Why, if you're buying a used guitar and you're like, hey, this is great, but what's up with these frets and why are they all gouged?
When I look at a guitar and I see one that has a lot of fret wear, it's usually in first position.
Because that's where you play all the chords.
First 5 frets.
Yeah.
And usually you see most of the wear on fret 1 and 2 and 3. If they haven't been filed down, you can usually get 1 or 2 dressings out of a set of frets.
It plays great now.
Well, they play great because it's like the fretless wonder. I mean, you're basically taking the frets way, way down.
Take it to a luthier, guys, before you get it refretted. Make sure you can't get it dressed first, unless you really have to have different frets.
And I would strongly discourage someone who doesn't know a lot about guitar repair to try to level frets themselves. You'll
take it to a reputable guy.
So let's talk about material. Nickel, stainless.
I would encourage people to not go with stainless steel frets.
What's the big difference?
The big difference is wear. A stainless steel fret will wear better, but it is also very difficult to level because it's a very hard metal.
Yeah, you have to beat it in submission.
Yeah. I mean, back in the old days, there were some inexpensive instruments that had brass frets, silver tones and things like that, basically low end models. And those things you'd play them for a week and they'd rut out.
So I'm curious, like nickel, they wear hard. I'm surprised that there's not some.
It's actually German silver is the predominant fret material.
Oh,
which is what is German silver? It is a combination of. I should know this. It's not coming to my brain right now. But yeah, I'm pretty sure. Now there are some. There's plating on steel frets that much like strings. But yeah, I think German silver is the predominant material that's used on high end frets.
Okay.
But you can, again, if it's something that you're able to, that a luthier is able to file down, level out, redress, polish out, it will make the guitar play better. You just have to be careful with some materials that are too soft. And again, I know a lot of people out there probably have tried or like the stainless steel frets. I've not heard very good things about them, so I've never really used them.
So let's talk about what's the problem with having gouges or flattened frets? You get a great guitar.
It won't play in tune.
Okay.
Generally speaking, when you get to that fret, because in order for a fret to really, as close as you can on an imperfect instrument, which the guitar is, it's not, unless you have fanned frets or some crazy types of things.
Scalloped.
A guitar does not play in tune all the way up and down the neck. But the closest that you can get is if you had as close to a point that's at the center point of the fret wire. That will give you the most accurate note that you can. And one of the problems you run into is as you file them down or mow them down, is that point becomes less and less.
Too broad.
Yeah. So
you're getting varying contact points.
And it's
it may throw it out a little tiny bit, but
a really good player can work around that. They can hear when things are going sharp or flat, changing the pressure, how much finger pressure they're actually putting on the fret. But my opinion is you try to have it set up and use materials that get you as close as possible for the average player to play in tune.
Gotcha.
If there's ruts and things in the frets, even if you can mow them down a little bit to level them out, you're sacrificing some note accuracy.
Right. So when we hear the terms jumbo frets, that's, I had to adjust my headphones. Probably
those are both wide
Yeah.
and tall.
Right.
Big ones.
Biggins.
Biggins. And the advantage of playing that?
You have to have a really light touch to play them. If I play a guitar with jumbo frets, I go sharp every time because I put too much
pressing
finger.
down.
I press down too hard.
Okay, so that's an interesting thing because if you're playing like power rock, I put a lot of pressure on mine, and I will notice sometimes, we'll just like, I think capos come into play a lot of times there, adjusting, getting the right pressure on a capo because you'll go, sharp pretty easily.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Anything else we're covering on necks that we haven't forgotten? I'm doing the Jared right now. I'm holding both.
Well, we want to talk a little bit about material, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Because there is There's a big difference, in my opinion, on the type of wood, whether it be maple, whether it be I'm talking fingerboards now, maple, rosewood, or ebony. There's a number of other materials that are similar.
All kinds are coming out now.
Can you tell a difference between rosewood and Brazilian rosewood?
I think there is a difference.
Tone-wise?
Tone-wise, yeah. I've played both types of instruments. Indian rosewood is primarily what is used today. A lot of it comes, I think it might come from Madagascar too, but it's termed Indian rosewood as opposed to tropical or South American rosewood, like Brazilian rosewood.
Indian's easier to say.
I guess so. A lot of it came from India primarily.
Okay.
I think what I've noticed is the harder the wood, the brighter the sound.
Right.
And the less oily the wood, because I think ebony is probably the oiliest wood that you'll get out there. Rosewood's somewhere in between, and maple is not oily at all. I think
ebony's super dense.
It's very dense, and it sounds darker to me.
Okay.
I think out of the three, ebony's probably darkest, maple is probably the brightest, and rosewood sits somewhere in between. And there's a lot of opinions on that, whether you go with a one-piece neck. That means is the actual neck and the fingerboard is all one piece.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's one.
Vintage Fenders are like that.
Yeah, like 50s Fenders.
Right.
They shifted over to putting a cap on it, so it's more like a fingerboard.
Slab board.
Yeah. So, again, not everyone can hear a difference. A lot of it has a difference in how it feels to your fingers, especially if it has a finish on it. We've talked a little bit about, Rickenbackers that have finish
glossy,
on a glossy rosewood finish, and it's odd, but it does, it feels stratish, I guess you'd say, because like a finished Strat board, maple board.
No, so I would not like that.
You probably would not.
I mean, Rickenbackers, they buff that thing out.
What is it?
Rickenbacker.
Okay.
So I guess in terms of the different materials.
Redenbacher?
In terms of the different materials.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And then, that's fingerboards. You can go down to the actual neck material, which, mahogany necks sound different than maple necks, sound different than solid rosewood necks.
Yeah.
There's a different tone out there for each type of wood. And again, it's personal preference sometimes. Sometimes people like the way that it looks. Ultimately, I opt more for how it sounds.
Mm-hmm. When you're talking about different tones and stuff, when you're talking about tones that are minimal in their difference, if you're playing something plugged in, super loud with all kinds of pedals,
you're not going to notice any difference, really.
No. If you're up there on a stage with a little tiny amp and a crowd who's being very polite, and you're playing, you're just doing your little, jazz or blues stuff, you probably can tell a difference.
I think you notice the most difference on acoustic instruments. Obviously that all of the sound is coming from the wood in the guitar,
right?
Or even jazz instruments, jazz boxes. That's where I think you hear the biggest difference.
Yeah.
Electric guitars, not so much, but I think someone that's building a guitar.
I feel like basses is where that is actually kind of like pronounced a little bit more.
I think bassists are a little more experimental. I think some of the really cool designs and
I just mean the difference between like a maple neck on a precision bass versus a rosewood neck on a precision bass.
Yeah,
I think that is almost rather audible to the general.
Probably more so because of the spectrum of sound on a bass guitar.
Right, you meant just
and
the
its percussive nature
in that case.
Yeah.
That's actually a very good example, because
thank you.
You may not hear it on a guitar as much as on a bass instrument, but if you don't
plug it in and you pluck a couple notes on a bass on either one of those, I think you would hear a very audible difference.
Yeah. Even plugged in, I think you hear a difference on a maple necked instrument, P bass or J bass, versus essentially the same instrument with a rosewood neck. The rosewood neck is going to be just a little bit darker.
Now I've got a couple of EBOs or EB3s, and we can compare those as well, and they have a shorter scale. They're actually a shorter scale base EB3, and they designed them that way. And actually, the neck is skinnier too, but they designed them that way so
For schoolgirls?
no for.
And Jared.
I don't think so. I'm glad they did. No, they did design them for guitar players to play.
Yeah, I think that's true.
And that's their complete opposite than the P bass that I have that has the maple neck. It's all maple neck. The Fender
one piece,
and that's a wide neck too. So we ought to check that out.
Interesting. All right. Let's move on beyond the necks into
Would you rather?
very good. Good to have you back.
Yeah.
All righty. What is our would you rather?
This week's Would You Rather. Let's simplify things down to one of the things we love to talk about around here, which are pedals. Would you rather use a MXR distortion plus my eye was blurry for a second, or would you rather use the good old trusty Ibanez Tube Screamer?
All right. Jared, we've been hearing from Tony a lot. You go.
Ibanez Tube Screamer all day long.
Why?
I own one.
Yes, but
Because I've never played an
but you don't have either one of those. You got to have, you got to choose one of the two, assuming it isn't because you
I
already
have
own
played
one.
through an MXR Distortion Plus before. I do prefer the Ibanez Tube Screamer. It's more, I think you have more the room for
control.
That's exactly what I was getting at. Basically, you have more control, in my opinion. Because as I said with what's going on with my weak section, I like a Tube Screamer that's barely on. You know, and when you turn it on, I like the settings really low.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have another one with the settings really high. Well, I guess that's cheating. But I like the fact that you can put a little hair on the tone without just totally saturating it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I prefer the Tube Screamer.
All righty then. Tony.
Well, it depends on what type of neck I'm playing with.
Yeah.
If it has a truss rod in it, right?
If it has a truss rod or not.
Here we go.
You know, I'm going to go. I do realize that the Tube Screamer is probably a little more well-rounded than a Distortion Plus, but a Distortion Plus has a sound that that was actually the very first pedal I ever bought was an MXR Distortion Plus.
Oh,
and knowing what I know now, I would have hated to be in the audience when I was using that thing because it was bright and it was, playing through the wrong kind of amp and that sort of thing.
Did you have a Stratocaster or something?
No, I played
through a
Jack.
Reverb Deluxe.
Well, not too far off. It was bright.
Yeah,
and I think you certainly realize now when you go to see bands, when someone on stage doesn't realize how bright an amplifier is,
oh my gosh,
and how painful that can be,
ice picky.
And then when you throw a Distortion Plus into the mix, so it'll be a qualified use of a Distortion Plus with probably not turning the distortion up as high
as it can go. Right.
So that's what I'm going with.
I'm going with MXR simply because I don't know, the Tube Screamer thing. I just doesn't do it for me.
Why?
It just doesn't. I don't think it has very much personality. I know that's crazy because everybody's like, dude, all it needs is a Tube Screamer.
Because they're so
maybe
used
on principle
and so
because everybody's.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's why I don't think they're so common.
That's what I'm. Yeah, I don't.
It's too normal.
I don't know, but I don't like the sound. I had a Tube Screamer, and I'm just like, I tried to like it. I tried to like it twice, and I didn't.
You
I
heard a
don't.
little bit of the tube screamer because it was a mini tube screamer.
And I had a big one before. Yeah. But that's the exact same circuit, actually. Anyways, the MXR, I like stuff more on, typically. So
you would keep that on as opposed to coloring for a lead or something like that.
yep.
Okay.
I would just go.
You're entitled to your opinion.
Yes, indeed. And I like the size of the box, too. I like the MXR size box. And I like saying, I don't need a tube screamer.
You know what? I use the tube screamer for an enhancer. For the distortion that's, for the gain turned up on the amp. I enhance my distortion with that. I mean, if I wanted a full-on balls, I would go MXR all the way.
Yeah.
But,
well, I'm not saying using it like that, but I tend to, I don't know. Just that's what I would do. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing that. So there. Okay. Holy moly. I learned stuff. I hope you guys did out there listening to our drivel.
That was a lot of Tony, man. Thank you.
Tony, the big star of the show.
Yep.
Muchas gracias. Hey, everybody. We just want to thank our executive producers for their support of our podcast. We've got some new people and stuff. It's great. Hello to Robin Smith.
Hello.
Yo. Thank you.
Just joined. Derek Fitzer, Pete Marshall, Carlos Mancha, Matt Brammer, David Wolfson, Martin Cliff, and Tom Brazen.
The first one.
Thank you guys so much. You color our lives spectacularly. If you would like to become an executive producer, head on over to patreon.com/the Guitar Knobs to find out how. Guys, this was super fun. I love learning new stuff. I really do.
It was a good time.
I love learning it with you guys. It's fun.
They're-
All of you out there, please give us a holler on our Facebook group. It's a ton of fun hearing from you guys and all over the world. It's super fantastic. It's just great.
Yeah.
I
Hit
don't
us
know.
up on
Subscribe!
Yeah. Al Di Miola, or how do you say his name? Al Di Miliola.
We'll edit this part, right? For the record, it's Al Di Meola,
Al Di
who is not a flamenco
Baloney.
guitar player. But anyways, we shall move forward.
Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/The Guitar Knobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.